here we are. Happy Tuesday and welcome. Glad you could join us. So let's get started. For Go for Lunch on April 16th, 2024. And this is brought to you by GoFor Technology. I'm Roger Harmon, your host, and we are here to make your technology work for you. This is National Bean Counter Day. So it seems like this gentleman, Kevin Wenig, CPA, decided that after working for many hours every day, maybe 7 days a week, preparing people's taxes, that he and his fellow tax preparers needed to take a day off on the 16th of April. So he established National Bean Counters Day. So there you have it. So a couple weeks ago we talked about the HP all-in-one printer program where you actually rented the printer and subscribed to the ink, and I promised that we would address the state of the printer market. So we are doing that now. So when you get right down to it, the buying a printer is because it's just barely less inconvenient than going to a copy center to get your prints made. So there's some common pain points that we all endure when buying and using a printer at home. Of course, there's the sky-high ink costs, and not quite as sky-high, but toner costs as well. And there's that feeling that the ink or toner constantly needs to be replaced, especially at the worst times. When you need to print the most, that's when that ink is not doing its job for you. And also there's the headache of the wireless or sometimes wired connection not working again when you need to print something right now. So some other things to consider are the printer drivers. The software that makes the printer work with the computer may not be refreshed, and they may not be up to date with your computer's operating system. So we always tell you, if you're saying, well, should I update to the latest operating system? The answer is make sure your printer is compatible and they have a driver that works with that new operating system. In this case, it's Sonoma, and some printers didn't work with Sonoma, and so people had to buy a new printer if they updated to Sonoma. So there's also a cryptic interface that makes it difficult to troubleshoot problems without the help of customer support. And then when you do call customer support, you find out that they're not that helpful, and so that makes that situation really unmanageable. So the fact of the matter is your printer is worth a lot more than what you're paying. So you're basically paying for the cost of the parts and the distribution. It's amazingly complex technology. When you consider like an inkjet printer, it has this 4 colors of ink at least, and it is putting this pattern of these very small little dots, spraying them on a piece of paper, and coming out with a good looking result. So it takes a lot to make that happen. So it's amazingly complicated. So what the printer companies are doing is they are subsidizing to recoup their research and development costs and the rest of their overhead from your ink purchases. So that's why ink is so expensive. So some manufacturers are now purposely designing their printers to basically shut down if you try to use a third-party cartridge. So what they do is they put some kind of a sensor or a little microchip in the cartridge that the printer can sense if it's missing, and then it will not work. Also, you need to consider, to give the printer companies a little credit, that they're designing their ink to work with all of the electronic and mechanical features of their printers. And so when you get a knockoff third-party ink, they may not be as high quality as the original manufacturer's ink, and sometimes can even damage your printer. So there is some method to their madness. And toner cartridges are usually okay to use third party. It's just an electrostatically charged powder, part polymer, part carbon. So then the plastic enclosure is fairly simple. So you can usually get away with a third party laser toner cartridge. So you probably have experienced a situation where an ink cartridge is missing and the printer just doesn't print. It has to have all the cartridges and it may not even scan. So you may have also experienced that if one color is depleted, it may not even print in black. It has to have ink in all the cartridges to print anything. Network connectivity problems are usually your Wi-Fi settings are lost on the printer and they have to be reset up. I always recommend having a USB cable handy so that if you do lose the Wi-Fi and you do have to print, you can connect the USB cable and get your print job done. And remember, USB cables come in many different lengths, so if your printer is not right next to your computer, you can get a longer cable to make that work. And when you're buying a printer, I recommend that you get one with a display screen on it. A little display screen makes it a lot easier to set up the Wi-Fi and the other functions on the printer. The less expensive printers that have no screen are sometimes very difficult to set Wi-Fi up on. So remember that when you get a new operating system, you will probably have to get new drivers for your printer. And some companies are very diligent. Brother has a good reputation for keeping up with new operating systems. I haven't had personal experience with this, but according to some of the articles I read in preparation for this, Canon is not known for keeping their drivers up. And HP I have had experience with. Sometimes they seem to be a little behind updating drivers. Even though the new software comes out in June at the Worldwide Developers Conference and the new products come out in September, HP doesn't seem to be able to manage to update their drivers in those months between introduction and shipping. So now we have all the problems with printers. You probably may be wondering, well, what should I buy? So let's talk about that. So what I do when I look for a printer is I read the one-star reviews on Amazon. And unfortunately, in the last few years, any brand of printer seems to have some problems experienced by some people. Now, of course, there's one-star reviews and there's five-star reviews. So you kind of have to balance that a little bit. But the gist of the one-star reviews kind of sums up the problem as quality control seems to be worse than it used to be. The printer manufacturers don't seem to be putting out as good a quality product as they used to. I've seen many one-star reviews where a person says, well, I had this brand printer for 10, 15 years. It worked fine until it didn't. And then I bought the same brand of printer and I've had these different problems with it. So that seems to be quality control is not what it used to be. And tech support seems to be suffering as well. People say they have been really frustrated when they try to call tech support. Either it's very difficult to reach a human being, or when they do, they don't solve their problem. So reliability on several different levels is not what it used to be. So the best printer that I recommend is a laser all-in-one printer. So that means that it will print, it'll copy, it will scan, and some models will actually fax if you still need fax capability. The advantage of a laser is that it will not dry out. And we'll talk about drying out here in a second. The other thing is the other way to go it would be an inkjet printer. So you have the inkjet printers that have the cartridges, and now you have inkjet printers that have a tank. So they have a tank for each different color. Usually they have 4 tanks, and they can last for a year before you have to refill them. But any kind of ink, except laser, which is actually ink, not ink but toner, will dry out here in the Sonoran Desert. So the solution to that is to print every week or two. If you have an inkjet printer and it dries out, that's not as big a problem because the print head is on the cartridge. So you can just buy another expensive cartridge and you're back in business. On a ink tank printer, the print head is actually built in to the printer itself. And if that gets clogged up because you haven't been using your printer much, it's a much more expensive proposition and possibly even requires replacing the whole printer because they don't really repair those. So make sure and set up a reminder like once a week to print something. You could print a to-do list, you could print a monthly calendar, you could print anything. But you need to print something at least once a week, maybe twice a week if you're lucky. Also, make sure your printer is not sitting in direct sunlight. That can also speed up the drying out process. So, what do I do when I look to buy a new printer? I read reviews, and that gives you up-to-date information as long as you make sure to check the date on the review and make sure you're not reading a review that's 2 or 3 years old. So again, I go to Amazon and read the 1-star reviews. I go to the Wirecutter, which is a review site now owned by the New York Times. I go to Consumer Reports, which requires a subscription, but they have very good information. And I also use Tom's Hardware. So let's just look at examples of those. So if we go to Safari, which is right here, and I restarted my computer, so I'm going to go to my history, and I'm going to go to the Wirecutter, and so they have the best laser printer. Now you can get color laser printers. They're a little more expensive. So you can see here it's $429. I've actually found that printer or one very similar to it for about $100 less. I think it was at Costco, but I'm not sure. This is the printer that used to cost $100. That's another thing. It seems like since the pandemic, the cost of printers have gone up. So this printer used to be around $100. Now it's $200. And then we have the printer that I use is very similar to this one, a slightly different model number. It's a Brother laser printer. And then here is a much more expensive printer that is a color, I believe this is a color laser printer. So that's one place to go. Another place to go would be Consumer Reports, so we'll get that here. There we go. And we'll just say home printers. And so So you can see here their ratings. So these are not great ratings in the 40s. I mean, the best is, here's one that's not a printer, but you can see the ratings go up to 100. So they should have a, I don't know why we're getting generators in there. Let's click on printers. Here we go. So you can see that their highest rated printers is 77. So that means they found some problems there. So they have Canon, they have a Brother, and here are the Brother without the display. And so you can see here there's a Xerox, and then we get into the HP. So you can see the numbers are going down. So the other place I go is Tom's Hardware. And there we go. I have it right here. And of course you want to get the latest results, so look for something that says 2024. And so their best is an ink tank printer from Brother. Then they have the Brother laser printer, and then they have a Canon inkjet printer. And then their fourth bit is another, it's an Epson Eco Tank. And here's another Brother laser without the document feeder. And here's a Canon portable printer. So that gives you a good idea of what to look for in the various sites that do reviews. So I would like to mention Cartridge World, a locally owned company that remanufactures ink cartridges and toner cartridges for laser printers, and they have recently moved. So they are at 4500 East Speedway, Suite 75. That's in the Midway Business Plaza, which is on the south side of Speedway between Swan and Columbus. And you can call them if you need an inkjet cartridge and see if they can provide one if your printer has a looks for the chip to make sure make sure that they can provide one that will work with your printer. So they're locally owned, really nice people, been supporters of T-Mug, and on their website it says in celebration of their 20th year in business here in Tucson, they are giving first-time buyers a 20% discount. Also, if you're a member of the Tucson Macintosh user group, you can also get a discount. I'm not sure what that discount is presently, but mention that if you're there. So if you haven't already, write your questions and comments down below, and do me a solid, share the GoFor Gazette with anybody you know that uses Apple devices so we can help more people. And of course the link or the GoFor Gazette comes to you each Monday morning at 7 o'clock, that you can just forward that to your friends. Zoom has had a major update. It's now version 6.0, and they now call it Workplace, Zoom Workplace. So they've made quite a few updates to it. So if your Zoom doesn't update automatically, make sure and do that. Thanks for the thumbs up. And speaking of Zoom, our Tucson Macintosh user group meeting will be tonight on Zoom. That link is in the GoFor Gazette. And so join us tonight. I'll actually be hosting the Ask Me Anything meeting at 6 o'clock and the general meeting at 7. And I'll also be doing a presentation on computer security. So join us tonight for T-Mug. So let's see what you guys have to say in the comments. And Leslie Ann says, does that mean I can plug a USB cable from my computer to the printer what if the connector type on the other end is US? What is the connector type? Okay, so on your iMac, you would have a USB-A on the computer side. That's this style here. And then, I don't have one handy, I don't believe. You would have a USB-B, as in Bravo, on the printer side. So that is a cable that's, you could order on Amazon. If you need a spec or a suggestion, I'll certainly happy to give that to you. The one on the printer side is something that's usually only owned. Actually, I do have one here, but it's connected to my backup drive, so I can't really disconnect it. Anyway, it's at the bottom of the GoFor Gazette is a cable guide that you can see what a USB-B cable looks like. But that's what you'd use, and it's a very good question and a good idea to have that cable available if for some reason your wireless connection doesn't work. So thanks for asking. Well, if we have no more questions, let me just add one thing. So let's go back to Safari, and let's go back to our history, and let's go to Tom's Guide, and they have a great article here on the different ink subscription programs. So we've talked about Instant Ink in the past. The other companies have similar programs or different programs where you just get like a 5% discount on the ink, but they do automatically ship it to you when they sense that you need it. So this is a good article to read on tomsguide.com. So this gives you the cost here on the HP program. So at 15 pages a month for 99 cents, you're paying $1 for 10 pages. For 50 pages a month, which costs $3, you're paying the same price here. And you can see here we have the 100. Make that a little bigger there for you. And then you can change these each month. So, and then this is giving you the cost per page without the subscription. And then Canon has a similar package here, 30 pages for $4 a month. And then Brother just has a refresh program where you just get the regular cartridges. So here's the way a ink tank works. It has these separate tanks here. So that could be a resource for you. And let me get back here. Okay. So Leslie Ann has been using Instant Ink for a while, and she likes it. So it's working. And I have clients that have been using that, and I have never had a complaint from them about Instant Ink. So it seems to be working for everybody. The convenience factor alone is great. So if you think of any questions between now and next Tuesday at high noon, you can call me or email me, and I'd be glad to help you. And maybe even we would do a presentation that would help other people. So it not only helps you when you ask a question, it helps other people. So have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you next week at high noon for another Go for Lunch.